Everybody's here, they're just saying hello to each other.
Good morning. Today, we're ceremoniously signing Senate Enrolled Act 285. And of course, dealing with, says housing matters, you know, it's dealing with the homeless issue. Authored by Senator Cindy Carrasco, sponsored by Representative Alex Zimmerman. Bill, a lot of work went into, and I think will show good results. This goes to you, and you get a pen. Yeah. And we'll give you a copy. So we all know this issue has been around. We were just speaking about when I came to the State House in 15, 16, and 17, really didn't observe the issue as being one that was significant until the year 17. That was the last year I was in the State House. Gave up the second year of the second term to run for Senate, but I distinctly remember just between here and the circle that we had an issue. And I think it's been off and on and gotten generally worse over time. And now I think it's at the point where the city knows there's something that needs to be done. They're taking their own approach. And I really want to thank you guys for coming forward, because it's not just here. We've got it in other places across the state. And I do believe Hoosiers deserve safe streets, sidewalks, and public areas in all of our cities. Homelessness is a serious problem that we can't ignore. Indianapolis is the convention capital and host to some of the greatest sporting events in the world. More and more, that's the case. And more, I think we see short-term measures to maybe do something about it that hasn't addressed it in a meaningful way. Today, we're highlighting a new approach, and I'm happy to sign this bill. This law establishes a statewide prohibition on unauthorized camping on public land. It connects homeless Hoosiers to shelter, diversion, and most importantly, mental health services. Just like we all deserve safe streets, homeless Hoosiers deserve a clear path to shelter, treatment, and health services. The law prohibits unauthorized camping, sleeping, or long-term shelter on land owned by the state or any political subdivision. Before criminal enforcement moves forward, law enforcement must first determine whether emergency mental health detention is appropriate, and if not, provide a warning and information about available shelter and services. The purpose of the bill is not criminal action, but moving homeless Hoosiers toward social service networks to help them get needed services and stay safe. SEA 285 strengthens accountability by preventing local policies that discourage enforcement of public camping and sidewalk obstruction rules. The law requires annual reporting from local law enforcement and from recipients of continuum of care funding, so the state can better measure efforts to reduce unsheltered homelessness. The law provides diversion options and protections for the homeless when no shelter or treatment bed is available within 5 miles. That makes sense. Before this action, Indiana's approach to the issue of homelessness had focused on housing first legislation that has demonstrably not reduced homelessness. It's a broader effort. This bill addresses it to get to the bottom of it. SEA 285 helps communities take immediate action to make streets safer and address the underlying problem in a meaningful way. So that's what we're here today for. I'll entertain any questions you might have. Well, I'd say that they're off base because it's different from what we've tried in the past. I think it's significant that the state has decided to step in because we know clearly where the bulk of the problem is. And I've talked to the mayor here in Indy. You know, they've got their own approaches to it. So I think now you can see there's a joint effort. And I think it was from the state's point of view, it's not just in Indianapolis, it's where it's the worst and maybe the most at stake if we don't get it fixed. And again, like in many arenas, I'm wanting Indiana to be a trendsetter, someone that's showing how it can be done. And I think this piece of legislation gets us on that right track. So I'd say that's a little premature when we're just gotten out of the gate on it, and would welcome any input for people that think we need to do more. Get a hold of your legislators. There's another session coming up.
Governor, the bill allows the defense if no beds are available within 5 miles, but do we actually have enough beds across Indiana to make this affordable? Some housing advocates say no.
It's a very good question, and I think that's going to be the city's been primarily on that trail. A lot of others are helping too. Some charitable organizations. We need to make sure that we have that available, since we now got a template that is looking for that. So where that's at, Cindy, do you know in terms of how to answer that question. Are there enough beds available out there?
There is a need, and we are working on it. This bill is just the beginning of a multifaceted approach to solving what is a very complex issue, which is homelessness. So I'm working with stakeholders, and you said, Governor, the next session is coming, and the work is ongoing. This is just the beginning.
Very good. And that's key that in this administration, in this session, we've addressed it. And I think in a significant way. And on anything, when you're tackling a problem that has been this vexing and has risen basically pretty definably in the last 10 years, it's time to do more than what we've done.
What is your take on Jennifer Northmeyer now leading Indiana DCS, and what went behind your decision to keep Adam Krupp as a special advisor?
So when I found individuals to get into heading these agencies, not to mention reorganizing state government through a secretarial system with cabinets, been unbelievable what that's done to get the right amount of supervision over the 70 agencies that were kind of sprawling and running mostly on their own. Of course, we all know FSSA, DCS, and a lot of things associated with even the subject we're talking about here today, mental health. That is probably the focal point where there's probably more stress in that particular job. Adam came in, had done a good job, asked for a leave of absence. We gave that to him, and now he feels like it's time to come back in. Jennifer, on the other hand, had done a good job, and since that's been working well, she's going to stay in that role, and Adam's going to come back to see how he can help alongside. And if that's such an expansive area with so much that we need to do that we made a lot of headway on it. When he did leave, she did an excellent job. We'll see how that works for him in terms of the new role, and we'll go from there. So that's I'll take all that input and appreciate his concern about affordability. It is the top issue. I'll look first to see what I'm going to do in the next couple of weeks in terms of extending this. When prices went up due to the Mideast kind of scuffle, we need to get through it. But you got to remember, most people are fatigued. This is just one small part of it. And this goes back, and I've said it repeatedly, to the 3 years of the last administration when we got a 25% dose of inflation. We've now had 2 years to shoulder all of that. And we're at least lucky in a state that we've got strong economic growth despite that. And we're a low cost state. So when it comes to doing anything further, remember, those are also the taxes that keep our roads and bridges in good shape. So I'll look at that, take any recommendation into consideration, and decide accordingly. Probably end on that question because I'm surprised that didn't come up before. It's moving along methodically. Had a good conversation with the Bears just last week, and they're checking off the due diligence items that we're going to take at least a couple months, if not longer. The Illinois legislature is still in session. And if I were the Bears, thinking about where the next 50 years would seem to make more sense as a business, when the city of Chicago, it's now public, 40% of their operating budget is paying interest. I'm guessing that businesses in that arena probably would be tasked with getting the city back in shape, not to mention the state. I got a feeling that's a reason they're looking at it beyond doing the due diligence. Never going to get ahead of our skis. We've made it easy for them to get to where it is now. The Illinois legislature, I think, ends its session in May. And I think even if there is something in terms of a counter proposal, they may be looking at it more from the long-term perspective and not the short term. So thank you all for coming in today. Appreciate it.
We'll do some photos as
the media and have a